Welcome everybody to the kingdom. I am so excited to welcome you to this session today. We have an amazing session for you planned on the power of love, learning to grieve. And as we start each and every one of our sessions, we are beginning today with a song that I want you to look at as a prayer, a song about believing even when things get hard. This is Believe.
Believe.
I don't wanna believe when I got the news that you would leave, that I would never hug you. No, 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 I'm not ready. I'm not ready to let you go. I don't understand how this is part of the plan. Tell me why. No, 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 I'm not ready. I'm not ready to do this alone. So go ahead, dry your eyes, 'cause you were born to fly, and you will be alright. How can I believe that it was you I felt in the breeze, that you were right beside me, telling me that you're with me, watching me like an angel now. Don't worry, I'm always here in your heart, guiding you here in the dark. When you can't see me, I'm pushing you to grow stronger, pushing you to grow stronger now. I'm here, believe. Oh, would you believe? It feels though I've been released from all my worries. I wanna know that you're with me. I wanna know that you're with me now. Here in my heart, guiding me from the dark. But I will always miss you. I wish that I could call you. Are you there when I call you now? So go ahead, dry your eyes, 'cause you were born to fly, and you will be alright. Would you believe all this happened to me, but I'm still not broken. No, 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 they can't bring us. No, 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 they can't take us down. Don't worry, I trust. I didn't realize that when my whole world ended overnight, that you were right there guiding, pushing me to grow stronger. I pray that I can grow stronger now, 'cause I lift you up, I praise your name. Oh, 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 no, I trust in you. We rise again. Would you believe all this happened to me, but I'm still not broken. No, 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 they can't bring us. No, 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 they can't take us down. Didn't realize that when my whole world in these photographs of you and me is how much you love me. I just wanna say thank you. I just wanna say thank you now. And I believe.
Everybody, I hope you feel belief. I hope you feel the love and connection that we can have in our lives when we remember to believe that even when there are hard things that happen in our lives and in the world, when we believe that more is possible, when we believe that this is happening and our souls will grow, when we believe that grief can actually transform into love and that grief is actually love, then we wake up to remember that all of this is here in this divine dance of love. And so I'm so grateful and so excited to welcome you. For those of you who are here for the first time, or if you've been coming to the kingdom for years now, our season 3 is all about the power of love. And this episode 3, is about learning to grieve. Learning to grieve. And I have an incredibly special guest, Addison Brasil, who is going to be joining us today in just a little while. But before we jump in with Addison, I just want to take a second to welcome all of our first timers. So if this is your first time here at the Kingdom, we have a few little rituals that we do here. And the first one is this. If it's your first time here, just type the words "first time" into the chat box, and you will see our entire community welcome you here with open arms and an open heart. And make sure everybody here in the chat box type in where you're coming in from, even if it's not your first time, so we can see this connection of all of us coming together from all over the world. So if it's your first time, type "first time." If it's not your first time, type where you're coming in from, or everybody type where you're coming in from. And here at the Kingdom, when we are doing this deep work, what happens is if you hear me or our special guest say anything, or anyone else who comes on stage to speak, say anything that makes you want to say like, "Yeah, girl," or "Amen," or "I'm with you," or "I got you," or "I love this," or whatever, all you do is put the number 1 in the chat box a whole bunch of times, and you'll see our community do that now. And so this would be when I would say, "Kingdom family, make some noise," and you would put your 1s in the chat box, and that's how I know that you are here. And this is going to be the energy moving between us. And if you hear anything that you want to keep, the way that we'll use the chat box is not to just talk about random things, but really to use this time to type in any quotes or golden nuggets that you have from the experience that you want to remember. And so hello, Ido, I hope I'm saying your name right. Ido Victor, first time welcome from Massachusetts. We have Cheryl from British Columbia. Hey, Cheryl girl. Sandy, hello from Indiana City. Cindy from Madison, Wisconsin. I love you, Cindy. Oh my gosh, look at all of you. Yatali from Baltimore, Yvonne from Cottage Grove, Christine from LA, Barbara from Salmon Arm, British Columbia. Canada's representing tonight. Hello, Karen, your first time from Cape Cod. First time live, CJ, hello. First time Cher. Oh my God, Sherry, it's so good to see you, Sherry. Kathy, Kilani, everybody, welcome to the Kingdom. Welcome, Em. I'm so excited to have all of you here. So let me give you a little rundown about how this works, all right? So one of the things about the Kingdom that has been here since our very first session ever, and for those of you here for the first time, in our podcast, we have literally almost 100 episodes of the Kingdom already that has happened, and so welcome. And one of the things that we are committed to here at the Kingdom is, number 1, about making sure we're learning something, but then being able to put it into practice. Because one of the things, like when I went to church growing up, that I loved was the inspiration and the motivation and the feeling and the community that you get from church. But what I was always missing was, well, this sounds really good, but how do I actually apply this to my real life, to my real situations? And so we do a practice, and then we learn how to integrate this into your life. Then we'll have time to ask questions. So you'll have time to come up on stage. A few of you will be able to come up here actually and talk to me and Addison. And we'll end with a golden nugget to make sure you have your own key takeaway. And obviously, we sing because music is the sugar that makes the medicine go down. And so we have some special songs for you today to help us land this message in our hearts, with a few special guests actually performing with me for these songs, one who you all may know. And so I want to talk about one thing with you all. So we, have had the kingdom happening for quite some time now. And one of the things that is really important is we've shifted the format of the kingdom quite a bit. And those of you who've been back for the season know we did our last 2 episodes in person at this beautiful venue in Hollywood called The Nest, and I loved it. But we got some feedback from you all online that you felt a little disconnected from us in person because the energy wasn't coming straight to you at the screen. And so we heard you. And so now we're testing out in this new variation of this platform what the kingdom is like to come back virtual, mixing some other elements. And so I want to thank you all for your feedback and being with us as we continue to make the kingdom the best possible experience. And we learn and grow together as the world is changing and navigating, and we have events and really making this a dynamic experience for you. So if you have any feedback about this experience today, we're testing it out in this way, please write to us and let us know. My team, Kate, is here. She will actually put the email address for you to write in and give us any feedback that you might have about this experience today. And I believe the email address is just hello@justinmichaelwilliams.com, hello@justinmichaelwilliams.com. But Kate from my team will put it in the chat box for you all. Okay, so without further ado, I want to get into this important part of our session today, which is, people are often asking, what is the kingdom? What is the kingdom? But a better question I find is, who is the kingdom? Because the kingdom is not a thing, it is a community. It is about all of us, and this kingdom does not exist without you. And so every session, we will have someone from the community come and introduce and read our kingdom manifesto. And I want you to listen to this to really deeply feel and understand the power of what this community is all about. And so I'm going to welcome to the stage Evie. Evie is an incredible leader in our community who is in our master training, has gone through our teacher training certification, is a young person with a massive and bright and big heart and soul. Evie is here in the chat box, and you can talk to them here as well. And I'd love for you to hear straight from Evie about who is the kingdom. Here's Evie.
Welcome to the Kingdom community, a place where we come together to grow, belong, and rise. It's a space where we celebrate our journeys and inspire each other to be the best versions of ourselves. We believe that true growth is collaborative and that we reach our full potential when we help others thrive. We come to the kingdom to be inspired and energized, to feel supported and held, and to help others do the same. Our community is built on the power of connection, and we believe that everyone belongs here. We strive to create a safe and accepting space where we can reflect honestly, listen generously, open vulnerably, and love deeply. We rise together. We believe that there is something bigger than us and also something big within us. We believe that all of us have the power to transform our lives and change the world. We believe that music is medicine, singing is sacred, and dancing is how our bodies sing. We believe wisdom is everywhere, but especially in you, and you, and you. So today, we invite you to join us. We believe in you. We believe in us. Everyone is welcome in the kingdom. Together, let's grow, go beyond, and rise. We rise together.
I just love Evie so much, and I hope you feel the energy of this community and what it is that we are here to do together. And so as we prepare to go into the remaining piece of our session today, Before we jump in, I just have a few announcements that I want to make. I'm putting some of the dates here of our upcoming episodes. We have 3 more episodes this season. We have episode 4, which is going to be on July 16th, about expanding sexual intimacy and love into sexual intimacy, which will be a really exciting, no pun intended, episode for all of us. And then on August 20th, we have Forgiveness, a how-to guide. And on September 24th, we have Love as a Political Force. And we have some really exciting special guests with us for all of these sessions. I also want to make 2 other quick announcements before we get into the heart of this episode about things that are coming up in the community. So many of you know about 40 Days to Transformation. The QR code is right here for you on the screen. Our second round of 40 Days to Transformation is coming up starting on August 28th. So we have 40 Days to Transformation coming up soon. This is our signature 40-day program that our community goes through together. It is absolutely life-changing, helps you get clear on your vision for your life, helps you understand that even if you had a vision in the beginning of the new year, how to continue stepping into that vision so that you can end this year with as much power and purpose as possible. And we do it with community. It is one of my all-time favorite programs to lead. We've been doing it for years and we do this together. So if you're interested in joining, you can just scan that QR code there or go to justinmichaelwilliams.com/40 days. And then finally, we have Soul Study. So many of you go to Soul Study. If you go to Soul Study, put some ones in the chat box for me really quick, because I want to see you. So Soul Study is our online community circle for connection. And so what I mean by that is, and I'll say you also can scan the QR code for that, right, to get access to it. It's totally free. And all that we do in Soul Study is, the thing about the kingdom is we have the chat box and we can talk in this way, but it's really one way, right? It's like me and whoever's the guest talking to you. And we have a few people come up for questions. Soul Study is about you all coming together to talk about this work and integrate it into your lives. So you come together, we make small groups, it's all on Zoom, everybody gets a chance to talk. If you can't talk, you can just come and listen, but it's how we take the lessons from each episode and really deeply learn to embody it through practices. And they're led by our community members who are just incredible in leading this. Trey, who many of you know is our main leader of Soul Study. Renee has come in to help lead Soul Study. We have other people coming in as well. And so really grateful to have Soul Study as an opportunity for all of you to connect with one another. So I hope that you will go. So the last thing that I want to mention to you that is actually not on a slide, but that is really important, is, I don't think a lot of you know this. Some of you know and you get to enjoy it. We started doing a Kingdom pre-show. And I know everybody doesn't know this because I know y'all don't read your emails, because I don't read my emails either. But we do a pre-show. So about 10 to 15 minutes before the Kingdom starts, we actually have music playing. We have videos of things that have happened in the community. And so if you want to come and just get yourself in the vibe, you don't even have to be sitting down yet. You could be making your coffee or doing whatever. Come sign on to this link 10 to 15 minutes early. And when you get here, you'll get music, and it just helps you as you're getting your space together, get into the space for connection for this. And so those of you who've seen the pre-show, put some ones in the chat box so you can let people know what that experience has been like. It's been amazing. And I just wanted to call it out because I know that some of you who are not there for the pre-show would love to be there for it. And I want to make sure that you don't miss it. Okay. So here we go. Now that we have focused through our announcements, it is time to begin our session. And so I want you right now, wherever you are, to take a moment and just get really present. The intention of what we're about to do is just to get you present. We spend so much time in our day running around and doing a million things and multitasking. And so whether you're listening live or listening on the podcast, or whether you're on a walk or washing your dishes or whatever you're doing, just take a moment and let yourself be here now. And I want everybody who's live here to type one word into the chat box that is an energy that you want to bring to this session today. And I'm going to pick one word, and we're all going to take 1 minute to just have a little bit of silence. and drop into this word together. So we'll have one word, type it into the chat, and I'll pick one word for us to enjoy together. Let's go with focus, which is a word that's coming in from Laura Pauli. So I want you to just think of the word focus. Take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. You can close your eyes if it's safe for you to do so. And just repeat the word focus in your mind a few times. And I'm going to set a timer for 60 seconds, and we're going to be silent and drop into the energy of focus now. God, Spirit, universe, all that is, all that ever has been, and all that ever will be, we thank you. Thank you for bringing this community together. Thank you for allowing us to open our hearts and minds to grief and to each other. Thank you for our special guest who is here today to inspire us and give us hope and wisdom. And thank you for this community that has come together now for several years of this kingdom. May it flourish in all of our hearts so that we can be the kingdom in our lives. We can be that safe space of love for our kids, for our families, for our friends, our coworkers, and for everyone around us. And may today's opening that happens in our hearts allow us to hold the space for grief in ways that we never thought possible, so that we can also hold that space for others. Thank you, Great Spirit, for bringing us together. We are grateful. So it is. Ashe, Aho, Salam, Amen, Shalom, Satnam, Awen, Om. Thank you. All right, Kingdom family. Here we are. And today, I am so grateful to talk about this concept of grief because it is massive. And we have several quotes that we're going to be using throughout today's session. And this was a quote that our special guest, Addison Brasil, who will be joining us in just a second, said in conversation with us, actually, just very casually, because he's such an expert in this stuff, as he was talking to us as we were preparing for this show. And he said this. He said, grief doesn't start at death. It starts when you attach to love. And this is what is going to take us through our session today. And I'm so excited to welcome our special guest today, because my goal with you all is if we can just allow, if we could give ourselves the space and permission to allow grief and death to be feared just a little bit less. If we feared loss just a little bit less and we can let it into our hearts just a little bit more, then that would be a success for me. And you know, I think about this session as we're talking about learning to grieve. And I'm thinking about so many things in my own life. And, my mom is here in the chat right now. So she's, dealing with all of these things with me as well. And I was thinking about my aunt, Lisa, who is my godmother. And, she was 57 years old and got diagnosed with stage 4 esophagus cancer. And it was so shocking to all of us. She's so vibrant and so full of life. And I remember just being like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck? This is not fair. There's no way that this can even be real. And thinking about her kids and her family. And I remember very specifically the last couple of years of her life after we got this news about her and her cancer diagnosis. And this is my mom's like best friend in the whole world, and how big that was for her and for all of us. But the one thing that I really remember when I think back to that time, from the moment that we got the news until she passed away, was that it called me to a deeper sense of presence. Because every single time I was with her, from that moment until the end, I was not on my phone. I was not distracted. I was fully there because I knew she was on her way out of here. And the thing is we're all on our way out of here. We're all on our way out of here. And so I feel like when we have these diagnoses, right, or these things that come up that bring grief present, it actually calls forth a deeper level of presence and love in us. And I'm so grateful to welcome to the stage today an incredible human named Addison Brasil. So Addison, I'm bringing you down here today. Here we are. Here's Addison. Oh, that's not Addison. That's Kate. I pushed the wrong button, y'all. Forgive me. We're learning this new platform. Okay. Hey, y'all. And there's Addison. Hey, Addison. It's
Hello, hello.
see you. So let me introduce you properly to everybody. So first of all, Addison is become a great friend of mine. We met at the Modern Elder Academy, MEA, even though we're both the two youngest people at MEA. And Addison is, personally just somebody who I love and adore. And the reason why I think his book and his work is so incredible, because he comes at it from the perspective of kind of being that best friend who's been through it. Not this expert who knows everything, but that best friend that you need by your side who's been through it. But even though he doesn't claim to be an expert, Addison is a keynote speaker, an advocate, a best-selling author of a book that I have right here, called First Year of Grief Club, A Gift from a Friend Who Gets It. It's an amazing book. Many of you have read it. And he also hosts a podcast called Grief Club. And, in following his own dreams of creating stories that connect people, he's become a total disruptor in the mental health and grief space because of the heart and soul and passion and the way that he really turns our understanding of grief upside down. So Addison, this has been so overdue, and I'm so grateful to have you here. Thank you for coming onto the Kingdom today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here, and I think we all just are walking each other home, and I'm so excited to walk with all of you for the next hour.
Yeah, we're going to have some fun together. And I say fun because I think what's going to be fun about this is we will expand our capacity to understand grief in, in a whole new way. So I want to bring the slides back up really quick. And I'll start with this one, Addison, that you said, grief doesn't start at death. It starts when you attach to love. I want to ask you a very specific question before we even get into any of this stuff. We talk about the word grief all the time, but I don't think a lot of people even know what it means. What is grief? What is grief?
I love that you asked me that, because that's something I make a point of asking everyone that I talk to. And it's funny, for such a universal process that we all go through, how when you really put someone on the spot, they don't have their own answer for that question.
Mm-hmm.
I know personally, I took a long time, and I come from the school of thought that grief is a living, breathing thing. And the definition of it should be as well. So I check in with that often. The one that resonates with me mostly is to say grief is the process that follows the loss of anything meaningful.
Okay,
Which
hold
means
on. Say that again. Say that again. Everybody type that into the chat. One more time.
grief is the process that follows the loss of anything meaningful.
Grief is the process that follows the loss of anything meaningful. Okay, keep going, keep going, keep going.
No, I'm just saying it is just that. It's a unique process for each of us. And that's why I don't claim to know anybody else's. I just say that I know that it goes well beyond the casseroles and condolences and try to show up after that. And with that word process, that can mean anything and everything that comes with it. So there's no right or wrong there. There's just the truth. And sort of learning and living into that truth, I think, is that process. At least it has been for me, and it seems to resonate when I explain it to that way for others.
Yeah, Addison, and how did you become what we're calling a grief expert? Like, I know and have a feeling that that's not really a title that anybody really wants to get because you have to go through it to become the expert. So tell us a little bit about how you became a grief expert.
Of course. And I think in line with today's episode, I will say that I have lived in such deep contrast. And the only way that it's possible for me to have felt so deeply the grief that I have is this experience of awe, hope, and love that sort of follows me wherever I go, this divinely supported feeling. But within that, the reality is at 19, I did lose my brother to an inoperable brain tumor after a 4-year battle. So my high school experience was very colored by having this younger brother of mine that was 2 years younger and full of life, going through that process. 4 years after that, I was the one to find my father after his suicide. And that grief came with a very complex post-traumatic response that I had to honor and deal with long before I ever got to a point where I could just be a son mourning the loss of a father. And that truly colored much of my early 20s. And after those 2 losses, I really went out into the world and I believed I could fix this. I could believe I could have this back end. And also, I think I felt like I owed it to them, that I could figure it out and get this result of fixing grief. And it wasn't until 2018 where I kind of thought I did that. I did all the retreats, I did all the modalities, I did every type of therapy, and I was like, hey, I'm good. And not only that, it was being recognized by others. They said my voice sounded like it used to, and my laugh was deeper and richer, and I was really available again. And so I thought, hey, I did it. And going out to celebrate that exact thing, I ended up getting in a catastrophic accident that killed a dear friend and left me relearning to walk and with a brain injury and really having to make sense for the world. And that's the point where I always say it really felt like I was trying to run Windows on Mac at that point. And then when I was stabilized in the hospital and not able to move and distract and use all these vices and tactics to deal with my grief, I realized that there wasn't anything I was ever going to be able to fix. There was just a lot I was going to have to honor each and every day. And that's where that began.
Addison, I just want to take a moment because I can feel the energy of the community here and I see everybody here in the chat just to honor your journey, and your process. I feel so deeply like each of those things that you said is something that turns someone's world upside down. And here you go tumbling, so I want to just take a moment in silence just for a second, everybody here, to just put your hands over your heart and just feel for Addison's story and how that feeling that comes up also connects us into our own stories of grief. And, Addison, I'm just so grateful that you've taken the time from these stories, these experiences that you've had to go through what, science calls post-traumatic growth, right? And so to understand how after trauma, we can actually come out stronger and come out with more meaning and more purpose, and that really being a choice in a certain way, to show up in a certain way. And we would not be here talking and being able to share these gifts with thousands and thousands of people who will be listening to this on the podcast and watching it on social media everywhere, if it weren't for this journey. that you've been through. And so it just makes this experience so dynamic, right? And how this is going to help other people, but us having to sometimes go through these challenges to get there. You know, I want to, Addison, bring up a quote about this topic and break it down with you, because it was a quote that really, as we're talking about learning to grieve, really hit me pretty hard when I heard it. And I want everybody to hear these words as like deeply as you can, okay? So here's the quote. It says, "Grief, I've learned, is really just love. It's all the love you want to give, but cannot. All of that unspent love gathers up in the corners of your eyes, the lump in your throat, in that hollow part of your chest. Grief is just love with no place to go." By Jamie Anderson. So if it resonates with you, put some ones in the chat. And Addison, I am so curious how that quote hits you and what that means to you.
Absolutely. I think it resonates so experientially, obviously. Like, it's just so true. And even reading it right now, I feel each of those things right now. And I also feel the presence of that love, that grief, that mix, that swirl, feeling like it has somewhere to go today, right now, in this moment, to be held and contained. And you can viscerally feel that when you get into a safe space where you realize grief is going to be talked about, that it's going to be something that's normalized and human and universal. So I just wanted to start by saying that it resonates for me even in this moment, but both experientially and scientifically. I used to think this quote was just something that somebody wrote to make people feel better, but it's
Right.
also really backed by the science of grief as well too, which goes back to that attachment part of, when we build an attachment to somebody, we really have this connection to them that doesn't go away, and it takes a lot of time to update. And I don't know if this is the moment you want me to really kind of go into this.
Give us the science. Give us the science. You know, I love this.
If we look at one of my favorite people in the world, her name is Dr. Mary Frances O'Connor from the University of Arizona. She's written this amazing book called The Grieving Brain. And her research shows us that when we meet with someone and we connect with them, we form an attachment bond. And the actual neurobiology of our brain changes. When we meet someone that's like, "You're the only one who," like, "You're my only mother and I love you so much. You're the one who I love for this," with
You're my
that.
friend, even something like that.
Exactly. Best friend, anything that you form this deep connection with. And it actually does change the chemistry of your brain. And with attachment, we have this idea of near, far, and closeness. And what is actually happening from the moment we form an attachment like that is this belief that we will always be together and we will always have each other. That's the base of that love bond that forms. And she beautifully said to me the first time I sat down and spoke with her on my podcast is, "Well, we can't talk about grief without talking about love, Addison," because that's where it starts. And so that's where the quote earlier in this one, I think, really, really resonates as well. And what happens is, I would challenge everybody right now to think about whoever they love most who's living. Right now, at any given moment, whether it's your mother, your friend, your father, if I said, if you needed to get to them right now, you would be able to explain to me how to do that. So for me, I would say, okay, my mother's at home in Toronto. So I would leave my house in Los Angeles. I would go to LAX. I would get a flight. I would get in another car. I would drive to my mother's house. And she's probably either in her house, in her garden, or at work. And what we don't realize is, with that attachment bond, we have that at all times. This map is always running. And that's how we stay connected to people, along with that belief. So what happens when we lose somebody is there's this learning process that she explains, this whole curve of having to update that map. And that doesn't happen right away. That happens over a long time. Also, there's two streams of information: the memories that are telling us someone has passed, they're no longer with us. We got a phone call, or we were at the bedside, we saw it ourselves. But then that other belief from attachment that they will always be there, and there's something we can do to get them back or to have them there. And that was explained to me 13 years after being in the grief arena. So much of my book comes from experientially, but we really meet in the middle in this beautiful way of going, oh my gosh, I wasn't insane. This is what happens every time we love and we attach. You know, we sign up for this process in a way. And it's just really beautiful to think that that's what's really going on, that we're
Yeah.
connected in this neural, in a scientific way at all times by love.
Yeah, and so I want to make sure I'm really getting this concept because this is actually really helps, I think, us understand. I feel like when I have an understand, the reason I love the science and the neurobiology is like when I can feel like I understand what's going on. First of all, it makes me feel a lot less crazy. And second, it makes me understand that this process is normal, right?
Mm,
Like, it's a normal part of my experience. And so I want to make sure I'm really getting this. So what you're saying is that anybody that we know that we're close to, whether they're near, far, or close, wherever they are, we have a way that we know we're going to get to them that's always running in the back of our brain. So I think about my grandmother, right? Or my aunt, like when my grandmother, my baka, that many of you know, what, like our main thing was we always talked on the phone and she always answered the phone. Like baka always answered the phone, right? And if not, she would call right back. And so I knew if I needed to get to her, I would call her. Once that's no longer an option, now my brain is having to reconfigure and recompute how to even orient my life because it has this old road that doesn't actually lead to a destination anymore. And so it's trying to figure out how to remap the connection, and that remapping and the paradox of those two things existing together is part of what leads to grief. Do I get that right?
absolutely. And I think it's important to distinguish, as Mary Frances O'Connor would say too, that grief is this lifetime process that's not going anywhere. Grieving as a verb, you know, is the process we're talking about of learning that that map needs to update and eventually will update. The challenge, of course, is where are they on the map? And
Right.
why can't I get them back? Because I believe from this bond that I can and I will. And that near far, you know, that's where they are on the map, you know, but the closeness part is the way we would say how close I was to my dad or how close I was to my brother. And that's also why sometimes we feel this avoidance of changing at all after we lose someone, because if I change, then my closeness to my brother, who can no longer grow and change, changes as well. And then I feel less close to him. So that's why sometimes we don't want to experiment. We don't want to evolve. We want to stay exactly as we were when we lost them because we are trying to maintain that closeness, which is just so human and so innocent and needs to come with a lot of curiosity and compassion and gentleness when that map is being disrupted and that belief you had that you'll always have this person is being challenged by death.
Yeah. And, I think about like this quote that we had here about the main thing is grief is love with nowhere to go. I'm just really thinking about love being on that road to
Mhm.
connect, that well-worn road that you're used to getting to someone in a certain way. You're used to talking to them a certain way. You're used to being able for them to be with you. And love is trying to go down that road, but that road is not there anymore.
Mhm.
So then it just kind of falls off of a cliff into, or explodes into this experience of grief inside of ourselves because it's just bouncing around in our brains without anywhere to go. And so the science, is this helpful to you all, hearing the science, everybody here in the chat? I mean, I think it's just really a powerful experience. Addison, I want to talk about, I want to bring up another quote. And this is my favorite quote from you. When I saw this quote from you in your work, it really made a big impact on me. And it says, the return on investment of connection is grief.
Hmm.
The return on investment of connection is grief. What do you mean by that? What does that mean?
I think a lot of ways it's the inverse of everything we were just talking about. But for me, as much as that can sound like something that's kind of disheartening and sad to hear, it's an invitation for me. It's a reminder that we have to open back up. We have to be available to the full experience of life. And yes, we also get to know, for many of us, because we've been through this before, that the return on that investment is grief. But as I just explained, grief starts with love. So if we're allowing love into our lives, if we're allowing ourselves to have a full experience again after loss, when, trust me, every part of my brain and body says, stay safe, do not connect with anyone ever again, do not form these attachment bonds, whatever that lady was saying to you, don't do that ever again. All of that is present for me every single day still. It's illogical to sign up for grief, but it's also this beautiful reminder that it doesn't have to be such an abrupt surprise one day when we do lose someone. And of course, we can lose people in many different ways. Death loss is just one of them. We grieve in so many different ways, which is why I always say the loss of anything meaningful. It doesn't always have to be death.
Why do we avoid grief, Addison? Why do you feel like we do this?
Well, for starters, to go back to that first quote, I mean, just that hollowness in the chest and that true discomfort. But I think we're innately wired to keep ourselves safe, and so you're going to try to do everything you can possibly do. As I said, I was a master of vices in my 20s, whether it was overachieving, partying, spending time with people, volunteering at hospitals, running charities. I did anything and everything to not have to really feel and really learn and really update that map, if you will. If I could just put that off, if there was something I could do to get them back or to reverse this or to live in sort of abandon of the reality of it, I think as humans, we're all going to do that, because when we love deeply, we would do anything to have that love remain or return.
Yeah. And how do you find, what are the most common ways that you've seen that we avoid grief? What are some of the ways examples? Because I think people sometimes don't know that they're avoiding grief, and then it ends up running their life and they're just running, but don't realize that they're running. So how do you see this show up?
Absolutely. And I want to say also that many of the experts I've talked to, including Mary Frances O'Connor, will say avoidance is a beautiful tool for safety for as long as it's meant to be used. When something's too new, it can be such a beautiful, wonderful thing. And then it's up to us to kind of sign up to commit to really honor everything around that avoidance and what we're avoiding in a safe and healthy way with peer support or professional support. But I think the most common, which we've all seen, is either throwing yourselves into something as a major distraction, or the vices that we all know well about. I mean, I think this type of unbearable pain and feeling can lead to a lot of addiction and a lot of mental health issues, if not tended to. So we see that a lot. It's incredibly difficult if you're someone like me, where your avoidance tactic is being celebrated culturally. The more I achieved, the more things I was doing at once. It was just so much, running a startup while producing a movie, while writing a book, and everyone's applauding it. And you're going, I'm just making sure I'm never here for a moment to deal with that pain in my chest. It's that part of it can be tricky. And that is something that we don't look at as often, that sort of the overachieving, all of those vices are also things that we're using to avoid our grief. And so we have to extend the invitation to people who are succeeding, quote unquote, for those who are just listening, to also sit down and take a moment and honor what's really there for them.
Yeah, this is crucial. And I think one of the things, I saw this article. Sometimes social media does, give us some interesting information. And there's this article that I saw in the Washington Post that we're going to put in the chat and make sure is also in the show notes of our podcast. That was fascinating. And you'll see the link to the article, those of you who are here live, pop up here at the bottom of the screen. It says, avoidance, not anxiety, may be sabotaging your life. And how avoidance might be a quick fix, but it comes with a heavy cost. And I find this so fascinating, Addison, this article that the Washington Post did, because what it talked about that I thought was really interesting is so many people, especially now at this time, we speak about, I know I even speak about sometimes of being stressed or being anxious, or as we're dealing with grief, we feel I'm just so off. And we then are trying to treat the anxiety, right? We're trying to treat whatever it is that's coming up that's feeling disruptive to us. But what the article said is the part of it, I want you all to actually look at this photo again, is the avoidance of the emotions, the avoidance of what's painful, the avoidance is actually what's creating the anxiety and the stress, not the experience that you should be having, or that you're thinking you need to avoid. And so I think this is so valuable with what we just talked about. Is like a lot of the pain that comes from grieving actually comes from us avoiding grief more so than the experience of the grief itself. Because what we know from much of the science is allowing ourselves to experience grief, allowing ourselves to do it in community actually makes us feel better. Allowing ourselves to cry and process the emotions is what actually makes us feel better, more than trying to push it away. So it reminds me of another study that I read recently around music that is so fascinating. Do you know that the worst kind of music to listen to when you're sad is happy music? Great. They've done tons of studies on this, replicated again and again. When you're sad, if you listen to happy music, it like is a tug of war in your brain and actually grates on your nervous system. And when they do the study and check on people later, after they've listened, an hour later, several hours later, minutes later, they feel worse from listening to the happy music than they did before they listened to music at all. If you're sad, the best music to listen to is sad music. The science proves the sad music allows you to process your emotion, while the happy music is you trying to avoid the emotion. And the sad music actually allows you to process and feel better. And so turn on your Celine Dion and your Mariah Carey, My Heart Will Go On. And you're Justin Michael Williams, Believe. I'm just teasing. And allow yourself to feel it, because that's what actually helps you move it through. So Addison, I want to ask you another question. And actually, here's what we're going to do, because we just talked about music. So I think this is a perfect segue. What I want to do is a short practice with everybody right now, a very mini practice. Okay, it's very simple. I want everybody to just take a second. If you're in a safe space to do this, place your hands over your center of your chest, close your eyes. Take a breath in and a breath out. And just think about anything or anyone that you've lost, expanding beyond just death, thinking of career or opportunities or friendships or anything. And now, like a cascade, just start typing these things into the chat. Start typing into the chat as many things as you can think of that you've lost, or that you might even still be grieving now. And we'll see these things come through. You lost trust, Yvonne. And as these come through, I'm thinking of so many things as well, but we have homes, Renee, relationships, job, Cheryl, connection with friends, love, friendship, mom, Cindy, community. Addison, you typed in here, and I'll just ask you to say them, Addison. What are some of the things that you've lost or that you're grieving?
Yeah, I think things like opportunities for love, career shifts that were unexpected, the loss of a business that I was running. And also I found immensely in the pandemic, like the loss of the opportunity to gather, to have community in physical spaces, and rites of passages that were missed and can never get back. I mean, those are some of the things I grieve. All the weddings and gatherings and even funerals, the rights to grieve together during that time were taken.
Yeah. And this is, there's so much that we can be grieving in so many ways. In our last episode, How to Love Your Body with Sonia Renee Taylor, I had realized that after that session, and we were planning for this one, I had realized that I was actually grieving the loss of my old body that I had before the pandemic, like the way that I was, and I was grieving that and avoiding it. I mean, there's so many ways that we can be grieving at this time. And so I want all of you to keep this energy, these people, these things and places and experiences that you're grieving in your heart. And we're going to experience a song together. And this is a song that I wrote called Forever Yellow. And this song I wrote with the Yellow Heart Memorial community, which was representing all of the families and the people that we lost from the pandemic. But what I want you to do as you're listening to this song, listen to the words carefully and listen to it like a prayer. And as you're listening to it, if anyone or anything comes to mind to you that you're grieving while you're listening to the song, I want to keep the chat box a space for us to just have like a litany of loss, like just a scroll of things that we're grieving and letting go of, so that we can see that we're not in this alone. And we can see that these things will always be with us. And when we come back, we're going to talk about what to do with this to start to transform it and open this more deeply to love. And so here is Forever Yellow.
This is Forever Yellow. By and for the Yellow Heart Memorial, and for all of those that we've lost.
You'll never know how much I miss you. My heart is broken, it's forever yellow. I pray to see you when I close my eyes. My heart is beating, it's forever yellow. I need you here when my world is falling down. Come help me breathe. I love you. You're a part of me. I'm a part of you. Forever I miss you. I will honor you. We will always be together. Your legacy will live on forever. You are more than a number. You're forever yellow. We will hear your name in the wind and rain. You didn't die in vain. We're forever yellow. I feel you near, and your love is all around. Love, help me heal. I love you. You're a part of me. I'm a part of you. Forever I miss you. I will honor you. We will always be together. Help me breathe, breathe again.
I miss you so much.
Help
I'm sorry I couldn't be there for you.
believe, believe again.
I love you.
Help me to love again. Help me feel peace again. Help me feel whole again. Help me feel joy again. Teach me to live again. I love you. You're a part of me. I'm a part of you. Forever I miss you. I will honor you. We will always be together. I love you. You're a part of me. I'm a part of you forever. I miss you. I will honor you. We will always be together. I miss you. I will honor you. We will always be together.
So this is Forever Yellow. And just take a second and feel in your heart whatever it is that might have arisen in you from allowing that music to process. And see if you can just type one word into the chat box right now that describes how you feel. One word into the chat that describes how you feel. And just see, as you let yourself open to this experience without pushing it away, what happens as we kind of work with each other to go through to the next phase of this journey together. So Addison, I want to bring up our next quote as we just very tenderly, move into the next part of this journey together. And always, feeling all these things in our hearts. And I just want to say, as we kind of transition into more teaching and talking, and that we can still keep, our loved ones and these things right here in our hearts and with us as we transition into more talking. But this quote by Martin Pretchell, I thought was very powerful. It hit me really hard when I heard it, and it really is what gives rise to this episode, which is praising the thing you lost is called grief, and grieving the thing you lost is called praise. I want everybody to type that into the chat box. Praising the thing you lost is called grief, and grieving the thing you lost is called praise. Addison, tell me what this means to you.
I think to me, it really speaks to this idea that I came to experientially of that idea of not fixing, but honoring, the idea of holding on to something and performing grief rather than allowing it to be a true learning. That's what it really says to me. It also brings up this idea. Somebody once said to me, when we lose someone, we go into a habit of either making them kind of God or the devil. We eulogize them beyond. We don't let them be people. We don't let them be fully flawed, fully feeling human beings like we are currently. We have to make them something bigger as this way of paying tribute. And so allowing who and what you've lost to be, just fully flawed, feeling humans that were just like us and are now gone. I think the inverse of that statement for me, that really resonates, that idea of being able to do that, just letting them be people.
Yeah, this is really, and it reminds me of, honestly, Addison, like with this quote, like we think of grief sometimes as just the sad stuff, right? But grieving is like all the times that we say their names and that we mention what they loved, or we make their favorite food, or we put up a photo of them. All of that is grieving. It's not just the sadnesses, but it's about like how we actually live our lives forward with them, as a part of the experience. And that's all welcome into our grief and grieving process. And I do love that, of just letting them continue to be people, right? Like just being people. I think people are really resonating with that. I'm seeing this in the chat box.
Yeah,
great.
letting them be people. And also this idea of grieving being, like we keep saying, a learning, but this daily commitment to removing this idea that there was a result or a fix for how we're feeling, but to be a part of it. I think that's just such a big switch of just committing to removing that belief that there's something that will change all of this, you know, and settling into that. And exactly like you said, if grieving is learning, like you're saying, then we're grieving when we're allowing new love in. We're grieving when we're enjoying something, when we're feeling awe or hope, because we're learning who we are within loss rather than focusing on learning how to live without someone. Those are very different things,
Say that
and very
again.
different commitments.
Say that again. That was a big one, please.
For me, honoring is not learning to live without someone, it's learning who you are within loss. That
Wow.
has guided me very strongly through much of the last 10 years.
That is really big, Addison. That's really big. Learning who I am in loss, as I experience loss, is actually teaching me and allowing me to grow in a way that's different in terms of just learning to cope,
Hmm.
right? Without the person. You know, I want to do a practice with everybody right now. And Addison, we'll do this, we'll do this together. This was really inspired by some of the work in your book. And so everybody, one of the main things that we do here at the Kingdom is we put these teachings that we're getting into deep practice. And this practice is about opening to grief. So I'm going to guide you through a little bit of it, and we'll be able to talk about it together as well. And you'll be able to come up and ask some questions in a little bit for those of you who may want to do that. And so the way this practice works is I want you to first and foremost, if you're comfortable closing your eyes, go ahead and do that and place your hands over the center of your chest. Just one hand right over the other. And take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. And another breath in and another breath out. And just think of one thing. I know you listed many things, but think of one thing that you're grieving that's really important to you. And then just name all of the ways. Just allow it to come up and name all of the ways that you resist this grief. Where do you feel that you are resisting this grief in your life? What practical ways do you avoid it? How does that show up for you? And now ask yourself why you resist the grief. And just be honest with yourself, like, why? Why do I resist grief? Why this grief? Why this particular one am I in resistance? And now we're going to flip the script a little bit here. And I want you to imagine that there is a little child, a young child, who is experiencing this exact same loss as you. And I want you to open your eyes. And if you're live here, type it in the chat. If you're watching online, you can write it in the comments. I want you to write a little something trying to explain to this child who's experiencing the same loss as you why it's okay for them to grieve. So take a second and just write something in, explaining to a little child who's experiencing the same loss as you why it's okay to grieve. And if you're not in a space to write right now, you can just think about it in your mind, but I want you to imagine like you're telling this child why it's okay. So Addison, I'm curious if you were to explain and whatever it is that you're grieving, if you would be in the first example for us right now as people are typing in their own as well.
Yeah, mine's an interesting challenge because I did it honestly, and I think the biggest thing that I'm grieving right now is romantic almosts, which we've spoken about before, you know? And to put it into talking to a kid, it really shifts really fast. And anybody who follows me know I have a very strong best friendship with my 5-year-old godson. And I often think of how I would explain these things to him, but he has experienced that a little bit, and being able to say, hey, like, I know how that feels right now. It feels like if you can't see your, you know, your friend across the street, if you can't play today, like, you know, that that there's no way you're going to get through it. And instead of saying to this child, like, stop trying to feel sad, say it's safe to be sad right now. Let's set a timer for 30 minutes and let's just sit in the sadness, and let's just do that. And that's totally normal, buddy. And don't feel silly for wanting to connect and wanting to love and wanting other kids on the playground to want that with you. Please don't feel silly. Please don't push that away, buddy. Like, that is the most beautiful thing about you. Keep showing up, bud. Like, you know, and I don't know how much further I can go because, like, you know, that's something that obviously I need to hear as well. But yeah, it totally shifts, you know?
Yeah. What I love about this, Addison, and I remember, the first time we practiced this, and I want everybody to pay close attention to this, and I'm seeing the ways you're all typing this into the chat box, is, the question that I want asked you to answer is, why is it okay to grieve? And oftentimes when someone's grieving, and I want you to just check your own responses right now, this is why it's a good practice, is we start to kind of try, instead of telling them it's okay to grieve, we try to make people feel better. So we say these things, right? Like, they're going to always be with you. You will always have them in your heart. These kinds of things, which are really lovely, right? Little lovely sentiments to have. But I think what we've learned from the science and from everything else is, instead of sitting there when someone's grieving and that someone can be you, instead of trying to make them feel better by trying to pacify the grief, like, I think about what I wrote for myself was, it's okay to cry. Like, it's okay to be sad. It's okay to wish they were here. Sometimes you'll think of them and you'll be really sad. And sometimes you'll think of them and you'll be really happy. And sometimes you'll wish they were here to experience all these things in your life. And sometimes you won't even think about them at all. And all of that is okay. So just whenever you want to cry, like, baby, just let yourself cry. It's okay. Let yourself laugh when you think about them. Don't push them away. Let yourself put up the picture or watch the videos or think about the memories. You love them so much, and that's why you feel this way. And it's okay. And for me, that makes me feel better, because it's allowing the grief permission and space to arise. Feels so deep. I'm feeling this session so deeply in our heart. I think, if there's one main thing that I'm hoping you all are getting from this, it's that when we are grieving, we are loving. When we choose to love, we're signing up for grief. I was talking to Ezra Bookman, who's our executive producer at the Kingdom. He owns a company called Ritualist. And, he said something really fascinating that, we don't think about when we think about marriage, right? So he was talking about marriage, and he says, when you marry somebody, what you're really saying is, I'm signing up to watch you die. Right? I'm signing up to watch you die. And, I was thinking about my little nieces the other day. I was just with my niece at Legoland for her birthday, and just enjoying, I was so present in this moment of joy with her. And I had this thought, And I was, first of all, like, I don't know if any of you have this with kids that you have, or nephews or nieces or kids that you love, but like, it just, as soon as you feel that love, like I was feeling so much love for her in that moment when we were swimming together. And I just remember thinking instantly, it switched to, if something happens to her, I will be so broken, I can't even let myself think about it. But what happened immediately is I let myself think about it, and it called me to be more present with her in that moment. And then and I was looking at her and just watching like the water glistening on her skin and just thinking, oh my God, this moment is so precious, because we're all on our way out of here. And with that deep love, it comes with grief. And if we can open to it, we can praise everything that we love.
And can I just add to that?
Mhm.
That sometimes I can see in the chat the way this is lighting up, and when I speak to people like this, we're thinking like we're going to be really in love and then they're going to die. There's also this beautiful micro level where we practice everyday grief and love working hand in hand together. There's going to be many grievances. There's going to be the loss of a lot that's meaningful. There's going to be conversations where you didn't feel heard. There's going to be missed opportunities. That's also grief and love on a daily basis. It's not this extreme that if I open up back to love, then they're going to die. It's all the births and rebirths and deaths of a daily relationship of two people showing up against the odds, wildly deciding to somehow stay bonded and attached and live this crazy thing called life together. I think it's less scary in that way, even though it's like, I don't want to sign up for that. But there's also just the idea of like, you're going to begin practicing this long before you attend another funeral. This is a daily relationship of love and grief working together in that way. And for me, it helps to break it down that way. It's not this extreme of, I shouldn't sign up because then this will happen. It's all part of each other. Like we said, it's the learning on both sides.
Yeah, this is so big, and we can love as much as we're willing to grieve. It's so vulnerable to allow yourself to love someone that much, and it's just so beautiful. I want to take this time now to give anybody the opportunity to come up and ask a question. And so we have in this new platform the ability to bring somebody up on the stage to ask a question. And so I'm very curious if anybody wants to ask a question. This is what we'll do. I want you to put the number 2 in the chat box if you want to come up and ask a question. My request is, number 1, that you will be recorded, filmed, and re-put on YouTube. So that about your own privacy, right? So you're being willing to be publicly, put out there in lots of different ways. And that you're in a space where you can turn on your camera and you don't have crazy noise happening in the background behind you. If you have a little something, it's okay. But that you have a connection that we can do. So anybody who wants to come up and ask a question, feel free. Oh, y'all, my mom never does this. And my mom just put that she wants to ask a question. She normally sits back and doesn't say anything. So I have to bring my mom up, y'all. So, okay, hold on, Mom. I'm going to try to get you up here. So I think I could put you up as a speaker. Let me try this. This is my first time. Okay. Mom, you should get like a little notification or something. Kate, you might have to help me out, but I just added her as a speaker. And then we'll have Mama B come up. Okay. Mom, did you get a little invitation to accept to come on stage? Well, we might have somebody else in the meantime. Let's see.
Am I there?
Oh, I hear you, but I don't see you. Is your camera on? Push the little camera button.
It's thinking. It's
Okay.
scrolling, thinking.
Oh. Okay, wait. There you are. There's my mom. This is so cool, Mom.
This is great.
Oh, Addison. And I look a mess because I've been crying, as you could see.
So what's your question?
My question is,
Look it
your
up.
book.
All right.
Hi.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead. What's your question?
I mean, first, I just want to say, Addison, boy, if your book got Marissa, my friend Marissa and I through so much of last year. And so my question though is, at there's times we were just talking about this morning. There's times I pick up your book and I just like go to certain spots and it just kind of like helps me. And I mean, I just want to ask you, since you wrote it, like, is it if I'm feeling all this stuff again, right? Um, me losing my mom, burying my mom and Lisa like 3 days apart just put me in a whole messy place. So the book really helped. And so now, do I start from beginning to end, or can I just flip through it? Or like, what do you kind of suggest?
Oh, so like how to use the book? Like, what's the best
How to
way
use the book after you've used the book for the
right?
first,
Like you've already gone through the process of the book. So how do you actually use it continuing? That's a really
or
good
like, what do
question.
you suggest? I guess is what I'm saying.
Absolutely. And for anyone listening, the book, it has check-ins and experiments for the first 7 days and then for a full year. So that's where the question is coming from. And I actually have had a lot of people come to me and say they didn't do it linear in the beginning, or they're like you, where they're reapproaching it and just going to a random part of the book and seeing what comes up as an experiment has been really, really helpful. They're all resilience experiments that stand in their own right. So there's really no right or wrong way to do it. And also for me, just so you know, there's certain things like the week where of no comparing your grief to anyone else or no measuring your grief. You know, I have spent 6 months in that experiment, you know, going back. So it can be 1 week, but I'm continuing to learn and grow. And I think the theme of this episode has been like, you're constantly evolving and changing around these losses and learning who you are within loss. So that experiment will be completely different the second time around and maybe go a layer deeper or reveal something new. So yeah, I think totally if you'd like to kind of go back through and see, you know, starting on week 2, that could be great. But also seeing what shows up for you, like making room, flipping through and seeing what page shows up and seeing if it resonates in the moment, I think could also be a beautiful thing. You're in that really cool place where it can be something that just sits on a table to remind you not to fix anything when you see it, or it can be something you pick up again and you know, see an experiment in a totally different way, which is what's been true for me, at least over the years, you know.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you for writing it.
Thank you.
My son for gifting it to us. And everybody, get the book. I'm telling you, will help you. And yeah, it's just, you know, for me, if I just want to add really quick, I have a huge family and I've had a lot of grief and very close people to me. And I, you know, kind of just did I call it the old school way. That's just my words of grieving through it. But last year I was in a really scary place that I didn't know it was, you know, I didn't understand why I was so sad and depressed and couldn't just even function, just daily stuff. And so I think just hearing like what you guys are talking about today, your book, you know, other podcasts and things, it just helps us open our mind to grieving. You know, it's not just for me, for me, it was like the old school Catholic way of grieving, you know, and it just kind of helps with even your, like you say, your daily things, you know, not just like a loss of life. Anyways, love you.
Thank you, Mom. I love
Thank
you.
you so much.
Thank you.
Love you, Mom.
And Justin, I will say, as we switch, that my podcast, Grief Club, the podcast, each episode is inspired by those experiments. So if you feel like you need more, there's sort of a complimentary free episode to go with each of the weeks. At least that's where we're building to in the production year. I think we're at like week 36 in what's aired.
Yeah, and the book is amazing. It has seven practices for the first 7 days and then a practice for every week going through the rest of the year. And stories and practices and experiences that you can go through. This is why it's called First Year of a Grief Club, a gift from a friend who gets it. And you really feel like as you're going through this with Addison, like you have that really good friend who really understands what you're going through. And you can use it in a lot of different ways. So we have the link to the book that Kate will put in the chat, and it's also going to be in the show notes. And you know, it says right here, Addison, grief is not something you fix, it's something you honor. I want to bring up, we have time for one more question. I'm going to bring up Renee. Renee had a question. And so Renee, I'm inviting you up and I'm going to unmute you here. Oh, you're unmuted. Okay, great. Let's see. Hi, Renee.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Welcome, Renee. Where are you joining?
Los Angeles, Los Angeles.
Renee is an amazing teacher in our community as well. And just an incredible healer and a leader and, therapist and all kinds of things. So Renee, go ahead, please ask your question.
Thanks. I am just appreciation and definitely ordering this book. And I think the thing I'm sitting with right now is the ambiguous grief keeps popping up for me. And like, I get the privilege of sitting with people and sitting with myself as it relates to like the ambiguous grief around this loss of relationship with certain family members, like growing up and like them being here, and then an opportunity kind of presenting itself to like go in, but then there's like grief could potentially be very inevitable. So it's just like, what is the like I'm sitting with that not the payoff, but like I know there's an investment, and I guess I'm just wondering if there are like tips or tricks or like ways you can share around dealing with the ambiguous grief, but it's not the like loss of a person per se, but like if the person is still here, right? And there's just the connection that is lost. And I love how you've kind of framed everything so far. And I just would love to hear a little more.
Hey, really quick, clarify this for everybody, Renee, to make sure we're all on the same page. Like, we're talking about ambiguous grief, which is not like, oh, someone died and clearly they're gone. Maybe in this case, you're saying like a connection has really changed. And you're asking, if I go back in or lean into this experience of either trying to rebuild the connection or talking about it or processing it, are there any tips for that? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, that and like, why should I even? I know I can answer that for myself, but.
Yes.
I'm so glad you asked this. And I just want to start by saying to everybody, if you're here today dealing with this type of grief, non-death related grief, I often am quoted as saying that I have felt for my peers more than for myself at different times, because the thing about death related grief is you're up against a hard wall. When that map we were talking about earlier is trying to update, you're always up against the hard wall that this person is gone. There's been a funeral, there's been this finite thing that we all understand as death. When there's a connection and that person still exists, which is why dating and friendships and family connections can be so difficult, that thing we talked about earlier, that closeness part of attachment, your brain's going to try to do anything to maintain that closeness. And if the person's still alive, like an ex or an ex, connection, that's a lot different. You're not up against a hard wall. So there's so much more compassionate and self-kindness like that needs to be brought into those situations. And that also that part of where you do get to choose, it makes no sense. And I think that's the whole theme of today. Why would you open up? But I think we all know from when we've been hurt that when the heart breaks, it does break open, and it does allow for that contrast to show up where you can love so much fuller. You can experience wonder and awe and hope and gratitude in such a deep, beautiful way, as well as those losses. And I sit with you as a lived experience expert right where you are right now going, why would I sign up for that? And all I can tell you is that my wealth on earth is my connections. It's the people around me. It's the people that support me. And it always makes sense, even if there is going to be grief involved, to step back into it. For me, it always has. And it's just something I have to whisper to myself again and again and again. And it does feel illogical and wild and silly, but it is just the way to do it. And what I would say to your question is, everything we've been talking about today, if you've been translating it into death-related loss, if it's not a death-related loss, if it's, this tangible thing, then there's so much more grace and integrity involved in really maintaining yourself within that. And just allow yourself that, is what I would say. I struggle so much more with these types of losses because I want to collect people. I don't want to lose any more people. I want to collect them, that's a natural thing probably. But I really feel for you, and I can get a hold of you. So if something clicks later, I will also make sure I send it your way.
Thank you, Renee. This was a really powerful and important question. So grateful for you, Renee. Thank you. So as we get ready to close out this session, I would like to just take a moment now to make sure that we really deeply take some time to make sure we feel the intention of this episode and what we're getting from this experience, our kind of personal golden nuggets and takeaways. And as I think about this, my hope for you all is that you can understand the nuance of grief and not feel it as this bad thing, like this terrible thing that we should avoid or have to apologize for or be sorry about or control or change or shift, but that the reason we grieve is because we had the privilege of loving something so much, and that love continues, even after the thing is gone. And the way that love sometimes shows up is that it transforms into grief, and that grief itself is the way that love is processing through your system at this time. And so I want you to just take a moment and place your hands over the center of your chest, close your eyes, take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. And if you could think of one golden nugget, one key takeaway that you learned from this session, from everything we've talked about, from what is grief to the ways that we avoid it, to the science, to the ambiguous grief, and beyond, what is the thing that you took away from this session? And just repeat whatever that is in your mind a few times, and then open your eyes and type your golden nugget into the chat box. And this golden nugget will have cascades of golden nuggets coming in to the chat. As those come in, Addison, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for your heart, you transforming and transitioning your experience of life and grief into something that can help and share with us all. We will be sure to make sure that everyone knows how to get in touch with you. We'll have it all in the show notes and everything on the website. We've put links to your book here for everybody. Everybody get Addison's book. This is probably showing up backwards, but it's Grief Club. It's right? Okay, Grieve
That's
Club.
right.
Gift from a Friend Who Gets It by Addison Brasil. Addison, and listen to his podcast. Is there anything you want to just add in as a closing statement, maybe a golden nugget from you as we close out here?
Yeah, one thing I just want to arm everybody with as they leave is just this one question that I always like to say is, whether you're asking it to somebody else who's grieving or to yourself quietly, never be afraid to ask, what does support look like for you right now? And to answer it honestly. That's the only way to support anyone or ourselves, is to answer that question honestly as often as we need to. We don't need to know, we can ask. And so just never be afraid to ask that question and to give yourself exactly what you need in response to it or those around you.
Yeah. Yes. Asking people what the support looks like to them at that time, and let it be okay if they don't know too.
Perfectly good answer. That's a literal quote from the book, actually. I
Oh,
don't know
really?
if it's a perfectly good answer to that question. Yeah.
Yeah, but how they want to be supported at this time, because it can change every day. Addison, thank you so much for being here with us. I'm so grateful for you. I love you.
Thank you. Love you too. Thank you guys so much.
So everybody, we have one more thing that we've prepared for you that's really, really special. Many of you know a community member in our community named Alonzo, and also an incredible artist that's a good friend of mine named Tito Rey. He just was on The Voice in Chile and was the runner-up of this last season, second place of The Voice in Chile. And This song I wanted to end with today, and it's going to be a little bit of a longer experience than you all are used to, but I encourage you to stay around and listen for this and feel this in your heart. I wrote this song when my grandmother passed away, and it was my first single because it was just this wishing that she was here. And you'll see how me and Alonzo and Tito come together to share this experience with you in a way that really exemplifies and transitions love. You do not want to miss this and what Alonzo brings to the end. And then I'll come back at the very end of this for our closing blessing. So I would love to welcome you all to this experience that we've created specially for you of Here With Me. Enjoy.
I wish you were here with me. I know you're in the air that I breathe. I wish you were here to see everything I made of me. All I dreamed has come to be. So why can't you be next to me? A feather falling from your wing is leading me, is taking me. Whoa. But I want more than memories, just to hear your voice guiding me. Yeah, yeah. Whoa.
And I would never want to be, ever want to be anything but a grateful man. And I'm grateful for the fans and the friends that adore the beautiful life that we've asked for. And I hate to say that it's not enough, because it is enough. We are living and we are laughing and we are loving in a nation that has embraced our creations. But I wanted to move the masses, you know. Elevate the collective perspective. Lift souls. Inspire love. Inspire love between nations that have all turned their backs on one another for all of their short-sighted reasons. Race, creed, and color. You see, it is these very things, these very differences, my friends, that upon honest, unbiased observation can clear the fog from your perception. Raise our awareness, give you a measure with which you could better fathom the depth of your own soul. You see, you may find hope where you thought none could exist. You may find that the very experience of being human binds us all together, and that we are all brothers and sisters sharing a few brief decades on this rock as it hurls through space. You may find that laughing and weeping sound the same no matter where you are in the world, and that no one laughs or weeps with an accent. You may find that no matter what your race is, what your color is, or what your creed is, that love, kindness, and charity warm the heart of every soul who shares this sacred opportunity we call existence. You may find that you are not alone. At the very least, you may find that you are not alone. And what will they say about me when I am gone? That I was bitter, that I was full of spite, that I had talent, but it was marred by pride, that I had wisdom, but I used it to manipulate, that I had the gift of poetry, but all I ever did was wallow in self-indulgence. What would they say about me when I am gone? That greed made my decisions for me, that fear made my decisions for me, anxiety made my decisions for me? Or will they say that I squandered the time that I so jealously guarded on my own on things that really didn't matter? Or will they say that my freedom was wasted on me because all I ever did was use it to complain about what I wasn't being handed? What would they say about me when I am gone? And what good are riches if we are not generous? What good is strength if it is not used to protect the weak? What good is beauty if it is not graced with humility? And what good is any gift that any of us ever have if we do not use it to help our fellow man? What would they say about me when I am gone? Will they say he was ever so slow to anger, that he was ever so quick to forgive, that his joy and love always filled the room and left it warm even after he was gone, that he was ever concerned with the crippled soul? What will they say about me when I am gone? And I know it is all very well and good to talk, to sit in your living rooms and your coffee shops and your pubs and your bars and speak elegant words about what ought to be going on in the world and what others and maybe even ourselves ought to be doing. But it is not enough just to talk about it. It is not enough just to think about it. You gotta do something about it. You gotta shout about it. You gotta sing about it. You gotta write about it. You gotta dance about it. You gotta paint about it. You gotta make all kinds of art about it. Run about it. Jump about it. Play sports about it. Go to work about it. Raise your kids about it. We must live about it. We must become it. Listen to me when I say, we must become love. That's what this is all about tonight, right? Love. So take whatever you're feeling in your heart right now and expand it bigger and bigger. And remember that love is an action, that faith is an action, that love is a choice. And that no matter what's going on in your life or that what's going on in the world, you can choose love. So I want to welcome my brothers, Tito and Alonzo, forward. And we're going to sing O's all together for everyone we've lost and everyone that we want to send a prayer for. All together. Here we go.
Just take a moment and feel that in your heart. God, Spirit, universe, all that is, all that ever has been, and all that ever will be, we thank you. Thank you for bringing this community together. And thank you for teaching us how to grieve. May we all rise together. So it is. Ashe, Aho, Salam, Amen, Shalom, Satnam, Awen, Om. Thank you. I love you, Kingdom family, and I'll see you here in our next session. Bye for now, everybody.